Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the winter campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. Today we're going to continue the winter campaign with the second scenario in Path to Carcosa, The Last King. And we'll go ahead and start that off by setting the scene.
Scenario 2, The Last King. If anyone has answers to the questions that burn in your mind, it's the cast and crew of the King in Yellow. With no other leads to pursue, you put on your best clothes and head to 1452 Atlantic Avenue, where a woman named Constance Domain is hosting an event in celebration of the play's one-night engagement in Arkham.
Alright, so that's the scene set. That didn't take long, at least on the initial intro. So now that we've got that set, we'll go ahead and remind everybody what our tarot reading was. For the good tarot card, we kept... Come on. We kept Strength 8 on its good side once again. So when the game begins, each investigator may play an asset from their hand at -2 cost. And then we flipped the Fool's 0 to its bad side, where each investigator who is defeated during this game earns -2 experience. Last week, however, when we played Curtain Call, we did pick up 5 experience, but each investigator suffered a trauma. Monty's was mental, Lily's was physical. And then the link to the upgrades video will be in the description down below. So let's take a look at our starting hands, and once again, we will be playing an asset from each of their hands at -2 cost. So Lily actually had 3 assets to start with in her opening hand. First up is her Enchanted Blade level 3. 3 cost to play, lore and combat on commit. Uses 3 charges. As an action fight, you get +2 combat for this attack. If you succeed, you may spend 1 charge to empower the blade, dealing +1 damage for this attack. And if the blade is empowered and this attack defeats an enemy, draw 1 card and heal 1 horror. In fact, giving everybody their starting resources would be very helpful. So we'll get Lily's out, and we'll grab Monty's as well. There we go. Now that we got all that straight. Next up, we have a copy of Sixth Sense. 3 cost to play, lore on commit. As an action, investigate. Investigate using will instead of lore. If you reveal a bad symbol other than a tentacle, you may choose a revealed location connected to your location. You're now investigating as if you were at that location instead of your location, but you may use either shroud value. That takes up an arcane slot. Then we have the Dragon Pole. 3 cost to play, combat on commit. You have 1 additional arcane slot. As an action fight, you get +1 combat for this attack for each of your arcane slots that's filled. If at least 2 of your arcane slots are filled, this attack deals +1 damage, and it takes both hand slots. Next we have a copy of Read the Signs. 2 cost to play, will and lore on commit. Investigate plus will for the skill value for this investigation. You may ignore any effect or keyword on your ability which would trigger during this investigation. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at this location. And we have a copy of Overpower. So 2 combat on commit, max 1 committed per skill test. If the test is successful, draw 1 card. So at the cost of -2 resources, Lily's actually going to play for 1 resource, the Enchanted Blade. So we'll get the 3 charges out for that. Make sure that's ready to go. And we'll find our 3 charges. We do some of that in that craft tray. Looks like I had connecting arrows everywhere in here, but anyway. So we'll grab some of these brass-backed tokens from LCG Tokens. Those will be on... I'll provide a link to their Etsy shop in the description down below. So that's Lily all set. Oop. Now let's take a look at Monterey. So Monty's starting hand contains Slip Away, 2 cost to play, lore and agility on commit. Evade, adding your lore to your skill value for this evasion attempt. If you succeed by 2 or more and the evaded enemy is non-elite, it doesn't ready during the upkeep phase. Next up, we have a copy of Pathfinder. 3 cost to play, agility on commit. During your turn, if you're not engaged with any enemies, exhaust Pathfinder to move to a connecting location. Then we have a copy of Lone Wolf. 1 cost to play, agility on commit. Limit 1 per investigator. When your turn begins, if there are no other investigators at your location, gain 1 resource. Next up we have Deduction. If this skill test is successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location, and you get a lore on commit. And finally, the asset we're going to play at -2 cost, Leo De Luca, the Louisiana Lion. Lore on commit. You may take an additional action during your turn. I was born in Mississippi. Louisiana just sounded better. So once again, per the tarot card, we only have to pay 4 resources for that. And we get Leo out. He has 2 health and 2 sanity on soak, and he's our ally slot. So now that we've set up the opening hands, let's take a look at our act and agenda decks. We'll take a look at our act first. Our only act here. Act 1A, Discovering the Truth. This isn't a party, it's a madhouse, but for some reason the guests are too deluded to notice. Very few of them are sane, and many are themselves horrors to your eye. Or perhaps you can talk to them to learn more about the King in Yellow. Forced, when an investigator is eliminated, by defeat or resignation, place each of that investigator's clues on this act instead of placing them at his or her location. Objective, find as many clues as you can, then get out of this awful place. Sounds like a plan to me. And then we have our first agenda, Fashionably Late. As you pull up to the manor, you notice that something is wrong. A trail of blood leads up the porch steps, and the front door is smashed. Muted music comes from within the house. Its warped and discordant notes painful to your ears. Has the madness of the King in Yellow already made its way here? 3 doomed to advance that. So now that that's all set up, we'll go ahead and move over to the map, and Lily and Monterey will move with us. Here's our starting map for the scenario. This is Constance Domain's manor. So we're going to start in the foyer. I'll go through that in a second. We've also got a dining room, a ballroom, courtyard, living room, and a gallery. We have each of the guests here with 3 clues on them. I will explain what that means. That was something we had to do as part of setup. So as we move into each room, I'll go through each of those guests at that time. But anyway, let's take a look at our starting location, the foyer. The entrance hall is lavishly decorated, displaying the wealth of the manor's owners while still creating a welcoming atmosphere. Shall I take your coat? The doorman asks as you enter. It takes a moment before you realize the doorman has only bloody stumps where he should have hands. On the revealed side, we have Shroud of 2 clues. As an action, resign. Having found valuable information about the production, you depart and plan your next move. If each undefeated investigator has resigned, proceed to if no resolution was reached in the campaign guide. So we'll get the 2 clues out for that. There we are. And remember, we need to get as many clues as we can and then get out of here. So as our lead investigator, we'll start off with Lily, and I think her turn will keep her right here. We're still here at the map. Our first priority is going to be getting those clues off of the location, off of the foyer, but I think I'll leave that to Monterey. So for Lily's action 1, I'm going to bring her up into the living room, where we'll say hello to Constance Domain in a second, but first let's take a look at the living room. Cigarette smoke and the sounds of idle chatter drift out of the manor's living room. You feel warmth behind the door. This flips into Shroud of 3, no clues. After a parlay action, if you perform a parlay action in the living room, Draw 1 card. Group limit once per phase. How many fireplaces does this place have? That is a Shroud of 3. So, we'll take a look at Constance Domain, who comes in, like all of the guests here, with 3 clues on them. So Constance Domain is our sociable hostess. As an action at Parlay, test Lore 3 to ask Constance about the play. If you succeed, take control of one of the clues on Constance Domain. Forced, when the last clue is removed from Constance Domain, flip this card over and resolve its text. Can I offer you a glass of champagne? Unfortunately, we are testing even. No, we're testing down 1, actually, to Parlay with her. But action 2, I think it's worth the risk. So we'll go ahead and try the Parlay. Unfortunately, we're down 1. I don't want to commit read the signs, though, just in case we need it later. In case we end up needing it later. Basically, I'm down 1 hoping for a plus effect here, which I'm probably not going to get, but we'll find out. Okay, that's the time I don't mind seeing the tentacle, because I'm actually going into that test down 1 already. But because of the Parlay, Lily does get to draw a card, because it doesn't require succeeding at the Parlay action, it just requires performing it. So Lily draws another Dragon Pole, which I'm not particularly happy to see right now. Then action 3, Lily will... Actually, we'll try that again, but I'm going to commit Sixth Sense to it to get her to even. So let's see if this works any better. So now we're at even. Elder Sign. Let's take a look at what Lily's Elder Sign is. There we go. It's taking me a little bit because I don't have nails to speak of. Lily's Elder Sign is +2. After this test ends, flip a broken discipline you control to its unbroken side. So fortunately, +2 does let us succeed, which means Lily gets one of the clues off of Constance. But that was all 3 of Lily's actions, so we'll flip her over. And then Monty's turn. Action 1 will start off by investigating, but I am going to go ahead and commit Deduction here so I can try to get both those clues off the location in one shot. So Monty is up 3. Zero gets him both clues off the location, so that's very helpful. One other thing I'm going to do, and I didn't think of this on the first scenario, but I'm going to use an extra action marker to mark Monty's starting location so I can keep track for his for his special ability, so I can keep an eye on how many locations away I ended up. Anyway, action 2 will be to move up to the Courtyard, where we'll say hello to our second guest up there in a minute. But let's take a look at the Courtyard first. Looking out one of the windows, you spy the Courtyard in the center of the manor. You find yourself longing for fresh air. And on the revealed side, Shroud of 5, no clues. Forced, after you enter the Courtyard, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is an enemy, draw it. What was first a wave of relief upon exiting the manor turns to dread. Dozens of yellow eyes stare at you from the building's rooftops, and shapes loom in the clouds above. So before we do that, we'll say hello to our next guest in here. And it looks like we have Ashley Clark, talented entertainer. 2 actions to parlay. You listen to Ashley perform. Take control of one of the clues on Ashley Clark. Forced. When the last clue is removed from Ashley Clark, flip this card over and resolve its text. Her voice is beautiful and full of passion. If only you knew what the lyrics meant. Oh boy. Okay, so we've got 3 clues on her, but we have to discard the top of the encounter deck unless it's an enemy, in which case we draw it. So let's see what we've got here. Dance of the Yellow King, which I actually don't mind seeing go away. So yeah, I will go into that a little more. Actually, let's take a look at why I'm happy to see that go away real quick. So on a revelation on this card, if there are no lunatic enemies in play, which right now there would not be, Dance of the Yellow King gains Surge. Otherwise, you test Will 3. If you fail, the nearest lunatic enemy readies, moves one location at a time until it reaches your location, engages, and makes an immediate attack. Now, it is important to note on there that it doesn't say makes an attack like it's the enemy phase, so it would still hit you again. That would be something to be very careful of. But anyway, for Monty's actions 3 and 4, he's actually going to parlay and listen to Ashley sing. So, you listen to her perform, but I think she's probably... Well, I don't know if she's performing or singing. Sounds like she's singing. But that does get Monty a clue off of Ashley. So that will do it for Monty. That'll do it for the investigation phase. At the end of his turn, though, Monty did start one location away, did move one location away from his starting location. So he either gets to draw a card or gain a resource. I will have him gain a resource because I've got something of a plan for next turn. But anyway, now that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, you can see we have no enemies in play, so nothing happens there, which means we'll go ahead and reset everything over here. Reset all of our action tokens. And once we get that done, then we will move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 5. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 3. So far this is playing nicely into my plan for Monty. Lily draws. Ooh, the Man in the Pallid Mask. The 4/3/4 spawn furthest location farthest from all investigators, aloof. As an action, investigate. Your location gets +2 Shroud for this investigation. If you succeed, discard instead of discovering clues, defeat the Man in the Pallid Mask. Indeed, it's time. We have all leads. We all laid aside disguises except but you, Robert W. Chambers, the Mask, the King in Yellow. 1 horror on attack. So, I will show you where this goes when I move it over to the map, but farthest from all investigators, I think the thing here, I'll just put it furthest away from Lily. We have a small problem on that, but there's a place we can put it. I'll show you why we did that when we move back over to the map, which, barring anything crazy, we probably will end up moving over to the map on our next investigation phase. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Monty draws another slip away, which is, well, I don't know how welcome that is right now, but anyway. So that brings us into the Mythos phase next. We get our first Doom up on the agenda. And then Lily will draw Tough Crowd. Revelation, put Tough Crowd into play next to the agenda deck. Each investigator must spend 1 additional action to parlay. Forced, at the end of the round, discard Tough Crowd. Actually, that might be kind of helpful, now that I think about it. I might be able to work with that. Monty draws a Maniac. 3/4/1. This is our first lunatic enemy. Forced, after Maniac engages you, take 1 damage and deal 1 damage to Maniac. Get out! Get out! Get out of my head! Does 1 damage on attack. So, after it engages Monty, he takes a damage. And the Maniac takes a damage as well. So we'll grab a token out for that. That actually kind of puts paid to my plan for next turn, but I don't think there's much I can do about that. So, now we're into the investigation phase, and we have to remember that parlaying now costs 2 actions. So, I think our better plan right now is actually to try to take that Maniac out, see if I can take some of the heat off Monty's turn. Or, yeah, I think we're going to have to take that Maniac off of him, so we'll have Lily go first, and at the start of her turn, it will take us over to the map. Parlays costing 1 additional action this turn wouldn't have been a problem if Monty wouldn't have drawn that Maniac. But I think we're going to send Lily over to deal with that maniac. So action 1, she's going to move over to the courtyard. Oh, and that's after you enter the courtyard. I thought it was after you reveal it. So let's see what we've got here. Hopefully this won't put paid to my plans with Lily. So Lily finds. The Pale Mask beckons. Okay. We'll take a quick look at this, but this is going into the discard pile, so this might be something we have to worry about later. Revelation. If the Man in Pallid Mask is in play, he attacks each investigator in player order, regardless of his current location. If the Man in the Pallid Mask is not in play, search his bearer's deck and discard pile for him, draw him, and shuffle his bearer's deck. Resolve this effect even if his bearer is currently eliminated, searching all out of play areas. So we already have the Man in the Pallid Mask in play, because we had to put him up here. And just to kind of explain what's going on. So Lily was in the dining room. I'll use another extra mystic action marker to mark that. Lily was in the dining room when she drew the Man in the Pallid Mask. Monty was over here in the courtyard, but the Man in the Pallid Mask requires us to spawn him farthest away from all investigators. So the only place I could put him and be far away from somebody was up here in the dining room. So yeah, that's what we had to do there. But anyway, that's a quick aside there. Action 2, so that's action 1 for Lily. Action 2 will be to engage the maniac away from Monty, which will deal a damage to Lily, which will flip her 1 over to a 2, and put a second damage on the maniac. Then action 3, we're going to use the Enchanted Blade to try to take it out. So we are at 5 because of her discipline, 7 to 3. Lily is up 4 on the attack. -1 means we succeed, so we will spend a charge. So spend a charge to defeat the maniac, because it'll let us deal +1 damage for the attack. So the maniac is defeated, which that worked perfectly. So because the blade was empowered and we defeated an enemy, we get to draw a card and heal a horror, except Lily's already at full sanity, so we just get to draw a card, which means Lily will draw another copy of Sixth Sense, which I'm not, well, I might be happy to see that if I end up having to go deal with Constance again. But anyway, that will do it for Lily. Now Monty actually got a little bit of a help on that. So for three actions, he is going to parlay, which will give him another clue off of Ashley. And then for action 4, which this kind of worked out very well, we'll go ahead and play out Pathfinder that we had in the opening hand. So we've already been through this during the opening, when we were looking at opening hands, so we'll just look at the flavor text real quick. Searchers after horror haunt strange, far places. H.P. Lovecraft, The Picture in the House. Then we'll immediately exhaust Pathfinder to bring Monty up to the dining room, where we'll try to hopefully deal with the Man in the Pallid Mask. We have another guest up there, which we'll meet in a minute, but first, let's take a look at the dining room. And I forgot to put a marker on his location, but he started at the courtyard. The rancid smell of rotten food wafts under the dining room door, and you barely avoid losing your lunch. And then this flips into Shroud of 2, no clues. Action, heal 1 horror, then reveal a random token from the chaos bag. If a skull or tentacle symbol is revealed, take 1 horror and place 1 doom on the dining room. The sight of the ghost scarfing down the awful feast, mouthful after mouthful, makes your stomach turn. Then we'll take a look at our guest up here. Sebastian Moreau, Impassioned Producer. As an action, parlay. Test Will 3 to get information about the production from Sebastian. If you succeed, take control of 1 of the clues on Sebastian. Forced, when the last clue is removed from Sebastian Moreau, flip this card over and resolve its text. He's a visionary, but you wouldn't want to be in his visions. A Will 3 test is probably an In Your Dreams for Monty, but a Lore 4 test to try to get rid of the Man in the Pallid Mask is probably not completely out of the realm of possibility. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. That will do it for Monty at the end of his turn, because he started 1 location away, and I forgot to spend the resources to play Pathfinder. will immediately gain one of those resources back to the end of his turn. So our only enemy in play right now in the enemy phase is actually the man in the pallid mask, but he's aloof, so we won't engage right away. Anyway, we'll go ahead and reset everything down here. I'll also reset the action markers. Ready Monty's Pathfinder. We'll actually go ahead and mark the starting locations now, unless they end up moving from those for some reason. But with that, we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Lily will gain 1 resource and go up to 6. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 2. Lily will draw. Wow. Burden of Destiny. She's drawn 2 of her weaknesses already. Revelation. You must either choose one. Flip a discipline you control to its broken side. It cannot flip back this round, or take 1 damage and 1 horror. How can I save them if I can't even save myself? So basically we lose 2 turns with that discipline. We're not too banged up, so I think we'll take the 1 damage and 1 horror. We're a little banged up on the physical front, but the sanity is fine, and as long as there are no enemies in play yet, we can probably deal with that. Monty draws. Tennessee Sour Mash. 3 cost to play. Uses 2 supplies. As an action, exhaust Tennessee Sour Mash and spend 1 supply. You get +2 skill for a +2 will for a skill test on a treachery card. As an action, discard Tennessee Sour Mash. Fight. You get +3 combat for this attack. And then at end of round, Tough Crowd goes away. Moving into the Mythos phase next, we get our second Doom on the agenda. Lily draws. Another Tough Crowd. Well, this might not be too annoying, which once again means we're +1 action to parlay. And then Monty draws. Ooze and Filth. Revelation, put Ooze and Filth into play next to the agenda deck. Each location gets +1 Shroud. Forced. At the end of the round, discard Ooze and Filth. So basically we skip investigating, and parlay actions are +1 action. Which probably won't affect me too much, but we're into the investigation phase now. Our first investigator will be Lily, and her turn will take us down to her play area. Whether I moved over to the map or Lily's play area, her turn's going to be exactly the same. So she's going to spend her entire turn parlaying and listening to Ashley perform. So that gets her a clue, and it also gets the last clue off of Ashley, so we get to flip this card over and resolve its text. Above and below. Ashley's song is beautiful and haunting, and you find yourself mesmerized by its melody. You don't know why the lyrics call to you, but for some reason you can't get them out of your head. Above the city, the storm clouds rage, and waves crash through the gilded cage. The skies open the path above to lost Carcosa. Below the earth, the salt water seeps. The shadows fall as the red sun sleeps. The ocean opens the path below to dim Carcosa. Remember that you interviewed Ashley. Flip this card back over to its bystander asset side. So the way I'm going to denote that is I'm going to use one of these sleeping icons. So it really means that they're exhausted, that something is exhausted. I'm probably going to use these in Eldritch Horror for the same thing to indicate delayed a little more easily. But for now, I'll show you this when we move back over to the map. I'm going to use one of those to denote that we've done the parlay action, or that she's all clear and we've interviewed her. Anyway, that will do it for Lily. We'll flip over all 3 of these, because remember, the parlay on Ashley normally costs 2, but because of Tough Crowd it cost her all 3 actions. And then we'll move over to Monty. The only way Monty is passing a Will 3 test that's going to cost him 2 actions to do on a parlay is in his dreams. So his turn begins, we have an open player window coming in, So I'm going to exhaust Pathfinder to bring him down to the ballroom. We'll take a look at our guest who's there, but let's take a look at the ballroom first. The distorted music grows louder as you approach the ballroom. Inside, many of the guests are dancing, eating, and enjoying themselves. And on the revealed side, we have the ballroom, Shroud of 4, no clues. After you perform a parlay action in the ballroom, gain 2 resources, group limit once per phase. Narrow yellow eyes watch the dancers hungrily from the darkness outside. When you try to warn the other guests, they smile politely, comment about wild animal sightings around Arkham, and go back to dancing. And we'll take a look at our guest here. Jordan Perry, dignified financier. Action: if you have 10 or more resources, parlay. Test Lore 2 to fraternize with Jordan. If you succeed, take control of one of the clues on Jordan Perry. Forced: when the last clue is removed from Jordan Perry, flip this card over and resolve its text. Time is money, and Mr. Perry has all the time in the world. So we have all of 2 resources right now, which means we're not getting near a parlay with him. So now, actual action 1, we're going to play out his Lone Wolf. So this won't help us this turn, but it will start helping us next turn moving forward. Limit 1 per investigator reaction when your turn begins. If there are no other investigators at your location, gain 1 resource. I don't mind being on my own. That's when I do my best work. Then action 2 will be to grab a resource. Then action 3, we're going to go down to the foyer since they are connected. And then action 4, we're going to move Monty up to the living room, switching locations with switching locations with Lily. So he ended up, so I didn't want to go through the courtyard because I didn't want to risk drawing another enemy for next turn. But anyway, that is the end of Monty's turn. So on the end of his turn, he started up in the dining room up here, which I actually remembered to mark with an action token this time. So he gets to do both on his special ability. So he'll gain a resource and draw a card, which Monty will draw. Copy of Lockpicks. 3 cost to play, lore on commit. As an action, exhaust Lockpicks, investigate. Add your agility value to your skill value for this investigation. If you don't succeed by at least 2, discard Lockpicks and it takes up a hand slot. So, yeah. There's not been much opportunity for investigation so far this scenario, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. On the enemy phase, the only relevant enemy in play is still the man in the pallid mask, so nothing happens there. Anyway, we'll go ahead and reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 7. Monty will also gain a resource, but he'll only go to 4. Lily will draw. A Blessed Blade. 3 cost to play, combat on commit. As an action, if Blessed Blade is ready, fight. You get +1 combat for this attack. If a Bless or Elder sign is revealed during this attack deals +1 damage. Before revealing chaos tokens for this attack, you may exhaust Blessed Blade to add 1 Bless token to the chaos bag, and it takes up a hand slot. Monty draws. Sneak By. A 0 cost to play, 2 agility on commit. Evade. When this action begins, gain 2 resources, and I'll go through the flavor text when we actually play it. End of round, Ooze and Filth and Tough Crowd go away. Going into the Mythos phase, we advance the agenda. Alright, so this turns into Agenda 1B, the final guest. If it isn't our final guest, the doorman announces, Miss Divine, your presence here has been long awaited. The woman wears a devilish dress and similar grin. You swear you've seen the symbol on her amulet before. Well, now the real party can begin, she declares, then heads off to mingle with the other partygoers. Find the bystander asset with the fewest clues on it. Spawn the set-aside Diane Divine enemy at that asset's location. Shuffle the encounter discard pile into the deck. So I'm willing to assume here that won't include any bystander assets with no clues on them. But before we spawn her, we'll take a look at Diane Divine. Diane Divine, mercurial and mischievous. 2/3/2 aloof. Each investigator at Diane Divine's location cannot discover or take control of clues. Forced, at the beginning of the enemy phase, find the bystander asset with the fewest clues on it. Move Diane Divine to that asset's location if able. So, I'll show you where I'm placing this, but I'm pretty sure I place this with... It does say fewest clues, but just partying with Ashley wouldn't make sense. Because theoretically she's supposed to move around and cause havoc for us. But anyway, we'll go ahead. I think we spawn her with the investigator with the active bystander with the fewest clues. So in essence, Ashley is inactive, which means I'm going to spawn her in the living room with Constance Domain. Then we'll shuffle the discard pile into the deck. Alright, give that a cut, and we're good to go there. Now let's take a look at our new agenda. Agenda 2A, The Terrifying Truth. More and more, this place continues to fall into madness, transforming before your very eyes. Forced. When this agenda would advance by reaching its doom threshold, instead remove all doom in play and randomly resolve one of the sickening reality cards underneath the scenario card. If there are no cards underneath the scenario reference card, advance to Agenda 2B instead. I've actually got them under the tarot cards, but either way, they're hidden, they're out of the way. That's the important part. So Lily will draw Ancient Evil, their favorite scenario speeder-upper. Revelation, place one doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance. Dark forces stir against you. If you don't act quickly, a sinister plot will be fulfilled. And then Monty will draw Dance of the Yellow King. Revelation, if there are no lunatic enemies in play, Dance of the Yellow King gains Surge. So let me check, and Diane Divine is not a lunatic enemy, neither is the Man in the Pallid Mask, so this gains Surge. Which means Monty now draws Fine Dining, Peril, Revelation, you must either place one of your clues on a bystander asset in play, or take 1 and 1. You don't want to arouse suspicion, but you really don't want to eat that. I think I'm going to take 1 and 1. Yeah, we're going to take 1 and 1 here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and mark our new starting locations. And then we'll move into a new investigation phase. We'll start off with... That's a will 3. Lily's even. We might have a decent shot at that one, actually. We'll start off with Lily, and we'll move over to the map. Action 1 is going to take Lily up to the dining room. Action 2, we're going to try to parlay with Sebastian, and we're going to commit... Actually, we're going to run a test up even. Or run a test at even before I do a commit test. So we're doing a 3 to a 3, so we're even. skull is reveal another token. If you fail, place 1 doom on a lunatic enemy in play. We still don't have a lunatic enemy in play, so that won't affect us right now. I forgot to put the doom up. So I did, before I pull this next token, I did forget to put the doom up on the agenda for Ancient Evils. So we remember that. Elder Sign, which as we saw earlier is a +2. So Lily does get to take one of the clues off of Sebastian. And then action 3 will run that back, and this time, since it doesn't look like we're going to be doing any more investigating on locations, we'll commit Read the Signs. Not that her will plus lore is very good anyway, it's only 5, and most of these are, so far most of these have been fairly high shroud locations. So we'll run this one up 1. And we get Tentacle Touched. That is what it is. So nothing we can do about that. That will do it for Lily's turn. Monty's turn, since we're still over here at the map, now that his turn starts, we'll exhaust Pathfinder and bring him up to the gallery. So we'll get to meet our next guest in a minute, but let's take a look at the gallery first. The sounds of conversation and warped music become muffled as you approach a lonely section of the manor. Leading to the door of the gallery is a long hall adorned with many expensive paintings, including one of Mrs. Domain herself. And on here, Shroud of 1, no clues. Forced, after you end your turn at the gallery, test Will 2. If you fail, place one of your clues on the gallery. Somehow, the guests in the gallery are still interested in the art on display, even though someone has vandalized all of the paintings and statues. And we'll take a look at our guest who's up here. Ishimaru Haruko, costume designer. Action. If you have 6 or more cards in your hand, parlay. Test Will 2 to question Haruko about the play. If you succeed, take control of one of the clues on Ishimaru Haruko. Forced. When the last clue is removed from Ishimaru Haruko, flip this card over and resolve its text. By the way, I also did forget about Lone Wolf, so Monty does gain a resource and goes up to 5. Looking at his hand, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in hand. So that actually wasn't an action. So action 1, that goes back in the bag. So action 1 will actually be to draw a card, which means Monty will draw. Quick thinking. So if you succeed by 2 or more, if you succeed at a skill test by 2 or more, after it resolves, you may immediately take an action as if it were your turn, but this doesn't count toward the number of actions you can take each turn. Action 2, since we have 6 cards in hand, I will go ahead and parlay. That's a down 1. Lily's probably going to be better suited to trying that, I think. Because at least she's up 1. Action 2. Actually, no, I think we are going to try to parlay. And then I will commit Quick Thinking and Tennessee Sour Mash to go up 1 and hope I pull a plus. But I'm definitely going to have to get Monty out of there post-haste. So up 1, hoping for a plus. A 0 gets me a clue off of Ishimaru, but I don't get the extra action because I didn't succeed by 2. I was only up 1. Action 3, unfortunately, I am going to have to bite the bullet as much as I don't want to, and move down toward Ashley. So we have to discard the top card of the encounter deck, which means we discard Ancient Evils. This I'm very happy to see go away. If it was an enemy, we'd have to draw it. And for Monty's last action, I will Move him. No, we don't have the 10 resources to parlay with Jordan. Lily's closer to that, though. I'll move him to the ballroom. We'll do that. Alright, so that will do it for our investigators. Monty, for his special ability, started over here in the living room, just actually in shot right here. He ended up at the ballroom after all of that, so we get to gain a resource and draw a card. Gaining the resource brings him up to 6, and then he'll draw. Pickpocketing. 2 cost to play, agility on commit. After you evade an enemy, exhaust pickpocketing to draw 1 card. Okay, that will do it for the investigation phase. Our enemies are both still aloof, though they don't do anything there. Anyway, we'll go ahead and start resetting everything here. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource, go to 7. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 8. Lily will draw. Drawn to the Flame, draw the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues at your location, Will and Loron commit, which might be more relevant this scenario. Monty will draw. Another copy of Tennessee Sour Mash that we had to use earlier. But anyway, now we'll get into the Mythos phase. Doom on the agenda will go up to 2. Lily will draw. Maniac. Forced after it engages you, take 1 damage, deal 1 damage to Maniac. So we take another 1 damage and deal 1 to the Maniac. And then Monty will draw. Another tough crowd, so it's going to be, so each parlay action is +1 action this round. So that's rather unfortunate. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Now we're back into the investigation phase. Once again, parlay being +1 action is a little bit of a problem, but maybe not too big a one. Plus, I need to get Monty's resources up a bit anyway. But let's go ahead and drop down to Lily, and we'll start off in her play area. Alright, Lily's first priority is going to trying to take out that Maniac. Fortunately, she's up 4 using the Enchanted Blade as she tries to attack it. So action 1, we'll start off with that. Skull, as we saw, is reveal another token. If you fail, place a Doom on a lunatic enemy in play, which will be the Maniac. -1 puts another damage on it. I'm not going to spend the charge on the Enchanted Blade just yet. Action 2 will run it back. Still up 4. -1 succeeds, so I'll spend the charge to take out the Maniac. And then because an attack defeated an enemy with that, I get to draw a card and heal a horror. So Lily goes back to full sanity, and then she draws. Emergency cash, gain 3 resources. That is timely. That is that's a lore test down there. Gross. Well, I think action 3 will just be emergency cash. So we'll gain 3 resources and go up to 11. Should be 1. There it is. Okay, so there are 3 resources for Lily, which will bring up to 11. That will do it for Lily. Now let's drop over and see what Monty's doing. We actually are advancing the agenda this round. I did not realize that, but there's not really anything I can do to stop it right now. He does gain a resource from being alone because of Lone Wolf, so that brings him up to 8 resources. Then coming into his turn, we'll exhaust Pathfinder. Where do I want to move him is the question. Whose clues do I have the best chance of pulling off? I probably... Now I probably can get... we'll move him to... I probably could get Ishimaru's clues off of her. The only problem is I can only do that parlay once, and I'm down 1 going into it. And it'll cost me a card in hand to get... Let's just get rid of the Man in the Pallid Mask if we can. So Pathfinder up to the dining room. Then action 1, I'm going to... Actually, action 1, we'll go ahead and play Pickpocketing for 2 resources. Which, when he evades an enemy, I can exhaust it to draw 1 card. Then for action 2, I'm going to investigate using the action on the Man in the Pallid Mask. So that bumps the location's Shroud up from a 2 to a 4, which means he's even. He'll commit Slip Away to go up 1. And then Lily, does Lily have anything she wants to commit? She'll commit Sixth Sense to bring Monty up 2. So we're 6 to a 4, trying to investigate, get rid of the Man in the Pallid Mask. -2 does get rid of the Man in the Pallid Mask. So that'll go to Lily's discard pile. And we'll put one more tally mark in. We'll put another tally mark in the campaign log under Chasing the Stranger. So, yeah. That was action 2. Action 3 will be to draw a card. So Monty will draw. Another Quick Thinking, which we saw earlier. And then action 4 will draw another card. So he'll draw. Another Deduction, which could be handy later, but I don't know that for sure. Anyway, that will do it for Monty. In his turn, he only moved 1 location away, so we either get the resource or we get to draw the card. And I think, since we're not going to have Lone Wolf next turn, we're going to have the resource. We're going to take the resource. Then in the enemy phase, our only enemy right now is Diane Devine, who is currently still not active. So we'll go ahead and reset everything. She's still aloof, so she doesn't do anything. We'll flip these over, and then we'll move back up top for the Upkeep phase. Lily will gain 1 resource, go to 12. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 8. Lily will draw. Oh joy, Dark Pact. 2 cost to play, campaign mode only. Deal 2 damage to an investigator at your location. Forced. When the game ends or you're eliminated, if Dark Pact is still in your hand, remove Dark Pact from your deck. Search the collection for the price of failure and add it to your deck. I'm not going to go through that until I need to. Then Monty draws. Pilfer. 4 cost to play, lore, and agility on commit. Investigate using agility instead of lore, and if you succeed, discover 2 additional clues at your location. So now we go into the Mythos. Well, Tough Crowd goes away. Now we go into the Mythos phase. So we remove the Doom from play. Then we'll resolve 1 of our Sickening Reality cards. So we'll go ahead, we'll get our Sickening Reality cards out. Give these a shuffle. And a cut, and we'll take the one from the bottom. And that'll be our Sickening Reality card. Sickening reality. Mr. Perry takes another puff from his cigar and his eyes burn a deep red hue. As he exhales, his skin begins to crack and hardens into stone. Cigar smoke exudes from the fissures in his skin, and the temperature in the room rises dramatically. He clenches his hand around the chair's armrest, which crumbles to ash in his awful grasp. Each investigator at Jordan Perry's location takes one horror. Move each clue from Jordan Perry to his location. Flip this card to its enemy side and switch it with the bystander asset version of Jordan Perry, removing that version from the game. So we'll do that when we get done here, but we'll flip this, and it turns into an enemy with 2/8/2. Hunter, Force. At the beginning of the enemy phase, heal 1 damage from Jordan Perry. Cigar smoke permeates the room, causing you to cough and wheeze. Victory 0, 1 and 1. So, yeah. Fortunately, the clues move to his location, but that comes out of the game. And now we actually have to draw on counter cards, so Lily draws. Dance of the Yellow King. If there are no lunatic enemies in play, Dance of the Yellow King gains Surge, except now there is a lunatic enemy, and it's a very dangerous one at that. So we have to test Will 3. If you fail, the nearest lunatic enemy readies, moves 1 location at a time until it reaches your location, engages you, and makes an immediate attack. So Jordan Perry will make friends with Lily and do 1 and 1. We need to get rid of that pretty quickly, whether we evade it or... So there's 1 and 1. And then Monty will draw. And Monty will draw another Ancient Evils. So actually, that's the last one in the deck, so we're not going to have another Ancient Evils come up until the deck runs out on us. But anyway, that will do it for the... That will do it for the Mythos phase. Looking at the investigation phase, Jordan Perry is going to take Lily out and nothing flat if I'm not careful. So, I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with Monty, and we're going to start in his play area. Monty is going to start off with action 1 by engaging Jordan Perry away from Lily. Then action 2, he's going to try... That thing is elite, so that won't help. But we're going to use Sneak By. Evade. When this action begins, gain 2 resources. Being told not to do something was generally Winifred's cue to proceed as planned. So he also gained 2 resources, which brings him up to 9. Actually brings him up to 10. I can't first grade math from 8. Alright, so we are doing a 5 to a 2, which means we are up 3. We get Tentacle Touched. Wunderbar. That was action 2. Action 3, we'll try that again. Still up 3. Skull is reveal another token. If you fail, put another Duma on a lunatic. Two tentacles in a row. You have got to be kidding me. Alright, that tears it. For action 4, I'm going to go overkill on this. We're going to go slip away on this. I spent the 4 resources already. And I'm going to commit quick thinking. I have had it with trying to evade this guy. So now we're up... So our evasion is plus lore. So we're 9, 10 to 2. We're up 8. That tentacle is going to go flying if I pull it again. Apologies for the delay in recording. I had to... The tentacle went flying after I pulled it the last 3 tests in a row. So I went to find it. I couldn't find it. Fortunately, I had a couple of extra chaos token sets from the revised core. So I just grabbed a tentacle from one of those, threw it in a coin capsule, and now we're good to go. Aside from Monty, who's going to get rocked. And I think we may be looking at the let's get out of here as fast as we can plan. But I think... Lily's going to... I think we're going to see if we can get some more clues first. So Lily's going to start off action 1 with a parlay on Sebastian. She's at even. We're going to commit... This is a little risky, but I think we're going to run it at even. Rune is nothing good. Minus... Okay. Let's take a look at what the rune is. As it goes flying. -4. If you fail, take a horror. Yeah. Action 2 will run that back. We're not starting this now, are we, folks? That's another -4 and fail. Action 3... we'll run it back, I guess. I don't want to commit Drawn to the Flame because I want to use that when I go to get the last clues. I've got a little bit of time here, too, before I need to use Dark Pact. So, yeah. We'll run another parlay at even. +1 gets her a successful parlay, so that's something anyway. Anyway, I'll go ahead and flip both of those over. Then on the enemy phase, Monty takes 1 and 1 from Jordan. Then we'll reset everything once we get done with that. Monty didn't move, so his special ability is not relevant. Actually, I take that back. There is something relevant at the beginning of the enemy phase. So, at the beginning of the enemy phase, we actually move Diane to Sebastian's location. So we needed to get those clues off of him if we could. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to now. So Diane is now stuck with Sebastian. Anyway, now we'll go back to resetting everything. That actually might fit into our plans as well. So we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty gains 1 resource and goes to 7. Lily also gains 1 and goes to 13. Lily draws. Another Drawn to the Flame, which we might end up needing. I might be okay using that on a commit, actually, on Sebastian. Monty draws. Hypochondria. Fantastic. So now when he takes damage, he takes horror as well. So effectively, Jordan Perry will be doing 1 damage and 2 horror, which we probably need to get that gone real quick. But anyway, Doom on the Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda goes up to 2. Lily draws. Marked by the sign. test Will 2. If you fail, take 2 horror. If the man in the pallid mask is in play, horror dealt by this effect is considered direct, and this test has +2 difficulty. This is actually a test of 4. She's down 1 and Monty can't help her. I guess we have to use one of these drawn to the flames to get to even. Elder Sign, as we saw earlier, is +2, and you get to flip a broken discipline. But Lily's fine on that. That was okay. And then Monty draws. Roach Swarm, X23, where X is the swarm value of Roach Swarm's location. A mass of skittering roaches completely covers the floor, leaving a trail of sticky brown ooze in its wake. Oh joy. Alright, well, that's turning into a problem, so I think our new plan here is to try to get out of here as fast as we can. Unfortunately, Diane is going to prevent us from discovering that last clue off of Sebastian unless I take her out, which is very tempting. Unfortunately, it's going to cost me Lily's entire turn to do it. But, the other question is, do I just work my way... The other question is, do I just start working my way out of here? Or do I try to take Diane out? We need to get... I definitely need to get Monty... I think Monty's going to be driven insane if I'm not careful here. So, because he can't take 3 sanity. That's going to just take him out. So I gotta hope I can evade both. Ideally, I evade both of these and start moving away. But we are advancing the agenda again next round. So I think we have to start with Monty, and that will take us down to his play area. Monty, if we could not have a repeat of last turn, that would be great. So action 1, we'll start off by trying to evade Jordan Perry. We are up 3. I said not a repeat of last turn, Monty, because the rune is a -4. So he fails and takes a horror. Action 2, we'll run it back. +1 evades Jordan. Action 3, we'll try to evade the Roach Swarm. Unfortunately, we'll exhaust pickpocketing since we evaded Jordan. And draw a card, so Monty will draw. Another lockpicks, which I don't particularly need. Let's see, that was action 3 will be to, evade the Roach Swarm, so he's up only 2 this time. Does Lily have any foot she can give him? She does not. -2 does evade the Roach Swarm, thankfully. So that was action 3. And then exhausting Pathfinder will take us over to the map. Pathfinder with Monty will take us down to the ballroom. And then action 4 will be to investigate there. I will commit... actually, let's do this. We'll actually spend 4 resources to try to pilfer. Unfortunately, we're only up 1, but this will rip all the clues off the location in one shot. Bag is back here. -2 does not give us those clues. But anyway, that will do it for Monty. So, and then because we did finally move a location away, we will have him gain a resource and go up to 4. I don't mind Monty failing too much, because we had a backup plan already. Fortunately, with everything evaded there, Lily will move down to the ballroom for Action 1. Action 2, she will get drawn to the flame, so we'll draw the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues. So Lily will find another roach swarm, but she does get 2 clues off the ballroom. And then Action 3, she'll use the Enchanted Blade. So she's at 4, 5, 7 to 4. She's up 3. And if we succeed, we probably are going to just take the roach swarm out in one shot. Actually, wait a minute. I gotta watch back some footage here, because was the man in the pallid mask? I think the man in the pallid mask was gone by the time we took that test. I'll have to check. Rune is -4, which of course means Lily fails. So she takes a horror from... She was only up 3 because of the ballroom being a 4. So Lily takes a horror from failing. That will do it for Lily. Start of the enemy phase. Diane is still where she should be. Lily takes a damage. I think we probably just need to get out of here at this point. But anyway, that will do it for the enemy phase. We'll go ahead and reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty gains a resource, goes to 5. I'll finish readying Monty's stuff. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 13. I'm actually going to get one of these 10 resource markers from Orbits. I haven't used these for that purpose for a while. So 13. Yeah, Lily will be at 14 resources coming out of this. Lily draws. Ward of Protection. Fast, play when you draw a non-weakness treachery card. Cancel that card's revelation effect, then take 1 horror. Monty draws. Buried Secrets. Put buried secrets into play in your threat area. If your location can be investigated, you cannot move except by scenario card effects. As an action, investigate. If you succeed, instead of discovering clues, discard buried secrets. If you fail, you may take 2 horror to shuffle it into your deck. Monty has to pass that investigation because he won't be able to move otherwise. But anyway, we can investigate there. There's nothing there that says we can't. So, now we move into the Mythos phase. We actually advance the agenda again. Then we shuffle these up, the Sickening Realities. And then we'll take from the bottom once again. And that'll be our next Sickening Reality. Constance laughs as the skin begins to slough off her body. Blood trickles from her shedding skin, leaving a trail of crimson on the carpet where she walks. One might expect her to cease functioning with her ribs and organs exposed, but she barely seems to notice. Each investigator at Constance Domain's location takes 1 horror. Flip this card, move each clue from Constance to her location, flip this card to its enemy side, and switch it with the bystander asset version of Constance Domain, removing that version from the game. So we'll move the 2 clues from the living room, or from Constance in the living room there. Then we'll flip this over. Constance Domain, a little too sociable. 461. Hunter. While Constance Domain is exhausted, she gets +3 fight. What's wrong? Aren't you enjoying yourself? 2 damage on attack. So that's all gone. That's gone. And then for Mythos cards, Lily will draw first. She will draw Ooze and Filth. Revelation put into play next to the agenda deck. Each location gets +1 Shroud. At the end of the round, discard Ooze and Filth. Monty draws Corrosion. Revelation, discard item assets from play and or from your hand with a total printed cost of at least X, where X is the Shroud value of your location, which right now is 5 because of Ooze and Filth. If no cards are discarded by this effect, Corrosion gains Surge. You suddenly drop the object on the ground and watch as it erodes and turns to dust before your very eyes. I don't think we have enough items. Let's see, that's 3. Yes, we do. So we get... I'm gonna need a Lockpicks this turn, so I'm gonna discard my other copy of Lockpicks and Tennessee Sour Mash to that. So that will do it for the Mythos phase. We're into the investigation phase. If I can't take this Roach Swarm out, Lily's going to be defeated by damage this turn. If you remember, she'll be -2 experience from that. So let's move down to Lily into her play area. Since I'm planning to get us out of here in the next couple of turns, action 1 for Lily is going to be to use her Discipline. So as we recall, she's going to get +5 skill value for the next skill test she performs this turn. After that skill test ends, flip this asset over. This action doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, so we won't get attacked by the Roach Swarm when we use that. Action 2 will be to use the Enchanted Blade to fight the Roach Swarm. So we are at 4, 5, 6, 7 from the Blade, plus 5 from the Discipline is 12 to 4. We're up 8. Skull is reveal another token. If you fail, place a Doom on a lunatic enemy. Skull again. So we'll be placing 2 Doom on a lunatic enemy if we fail. Oh, and speaking of enemies, the Jordan Perry and Roach Swarm up in the dining room should have unexhausted. So we're still up 8. A 0. Thank criminy. Alright, so we'll spend the last charge on the Blade to take out the Roach Swarm. And then since that defeated an enemy, we get to draw a card and heal a horror. So Lily will draw Meditative Trance. For each of your arcane slots that's filled, either heal 1 damage or 1 horror. Okay, right. First action, and then we flip this over to its broken side. So we'll find Discipline, Prescience of Faith. After the round ends, if you performed no skill tests this round, flip this asset over to its unbroken side. And then for action 3, we're going to move Lily. Action 3 will take us over to the map, as will Monty's turn, most likely. Oh boy, I just realized Constance actually is a hunter, so I don't actually want to move. I actually was going to move Lily to the Foyer, but that's going to send Constance after her. So that's actually a bad idea. So instead, for action 3, what is Lily going to do instead? I was going to do this later anyway, so I'm just going to have to do it now, I guess. So Lily is going to play her Dark Pact. So she's going to deal 2 damage to an enemy at her location, and Monty is an investigator at her location who's got more health, so Monty will take 2 damage from that. Wait. Hold the phone. If Monty takes 1 or more damage, take a direct horror. Yeah, I think we can still take that, actually. So Unfortunately, we do need to... The plan is still going to be to get out of here on the express plan. But anyway, that will do it for Lily. I needed to get Dark Pact out of her hand. Because I really did not want to add... I definitely did not want to add the Price of Failure to her deck. So that will do it for Lily. Monty will investigate his location. So he's doing a 4 to a 4, so he's even. Actually, before we do that, action 1, 3 resources to commit lockpicks, or to play lockpicks. So as an action, I can exhaust lockpicks to investigate, adding my agility to my skill value. If I don't succeed by at least 2, I discard it. Action 2 will do that. We'll immediately do that. So that's a 9 to a 5 this round because of Ooze and Filth. We're up 4. -2 means I do get to get rid of Buried Secrets, because I do pass, and I passed by at least 2, so I don't have to discard lockpicks either. Action 2, actually that was action 2. Action 3 will investigate, and I'll commit Deduction to go up 1 to try to get that clue. And Lily has nothing she can... Actually, she'll give him Meditative Trance to go up 2. Same reason that we're going to be hopefully leaving the scenario soon. Like probably next turn. -2, we committed a Deduction and a Meditative Trance. Yep, so... Wait, he was at 4, that was a -2. 5, 6... We actually fail that, now that I realize it, because of Ooze and Filth. So it was action 1 to play lockpicks, action 2 to investigate, action 3 to investigate for the clue. Action 4, he will draw a card, so Monty will draw. Backstab. Fight using agility instead of combat. This attack deals +2 damage. Then in the enemy phase, we actually got a big problem on our hands, because now we have hunters. So Constance will move to the Courtyard, and then Jordan will move down to us. I'll put him on Monty, and then Leo will take 1 and 1. So there's the 1 and 1 going on Leo. And then that will do it for the enemy phase. Yep, no other hunters in play. Diane is still with Sebastian. So we'll unexhaust everything. Reset the action markers. Discard that. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. We're back up top for the upkeep phase. Monty will gain 1 resource and go to 3. Lily will gain 1 resource and go to 13. Then Lily will draw. Unexpected Courage. 2 question marks on commit, max 1 committed per skill test. Then Monty will draw. Swift Reflexes. Fast. Play during any investigator's turn except during an action. Immediately take an action as if it were your turn. This action does not count toward the number of actions you can take this turn. Alright, Ooze and Filth goes away at end of round. Mythos Phase, we put a Doom up on the agenda once again. Then Lily draws. Young Psychopath, oh joy. 2/2/3. Forced, after Young Psychopath engages you, you must either take 1 horror or Young Psychopath gets +3 fight until the end of the investigation phase. Her eyes widened and she picked up the knife. 2/2/3. Right. 1 and 1 on attack. She will take... We can take a horror, so Lily will take that. And then Monty will draw. We can't get rid of this Ooze and Filth. That's fantastic. So, once again, locations are +1 Shroud. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Now we're into the investigation phase, and I think Monty will be our first player, because that'll determine if we're able to get out of here or not. So yeah, let's drop down to Monty. Action 1 for Monty is going to be try to evade Jordan up 3. -2 lets him evade Jordan. Then action 2, I have a little bit of a plan here. So action 2, he's going to engage the young psychopath away from Lily. Then action 3, he's going to try to evade it. And Lily is going to commit... Monty's up 2, but I've got a trick up my sleeve. Because they're both... well, actually, I might have a better plan even than that. So I think for action 3, Monty is going to play... he's going to pay 3 resources to play Backstab, using Agility instead of Evade, or instead of Combat, and this attack deals +2 damage, so that'll take that out in one shot. And then Lily's going to commit... Lily's going to give him the Unexpected Courage. Yeah, Unexpected Courage. To put him up, so that was 5 to 3, 7. So that puts him up 4. +1 takes out the young psychopath. Actually, that was still a 2, so he was up a lot. Then exhausting Pathfinder, along with the entirety of Lily's turn, will take us over to the map. Now that Monty is no longer engaged with enemies, he will Pathfinder down to the Foyer, and then action 4, he will resign. Lily's turn is going to look very similar. She'll move to the Foyer, and she will also resign. And with that, that is the end of our scenario, so now we'll move back up top to wrap this scenario and this video up. We're back up top, so let's go ahead and wrap this scenario up.
If no resolution was reached and at least one investigator resigned, go to resolution 1. If no resolution was reached because each investigator was defeated, go to resolution 2. Resolution 1. The brisk autumn air embraces you as you exit the manor. There is no doubt in your mind that the cast and crew of the King in Yellow have become affected by madness. Perhaps it's getting to you as well. You feel an encroaching darkness, a presence in your mind not unlike the gaze of the stranger. Startled, you peer about the front yard for the first time since escaping the manor. The scene is different. The front windows are not smashed as they were when you first approached. The trail of blood you had noticed on the porch has been wiped clean, and instead of the disturbingly warped music you had heard upon entering, the soothing tunes of slow jazz drift out from the courtyard. In your campaign log, under VIPs interviewed, record the name of each character you interviewed.
That would be a party of Ashley Clark.
In your campaign log, under VIPs slain, record the name of each unique lunatic enemy in the victory display. Each investigator earns experience equal...
Okay, before we go into the experience part, VIP slain as a party of, well, no one. We had to kind of nope out of there pretty quick.
Victory X value of each card in the victory display. For every
Which
2
is also
clues that
0.
were on the act deck when the game ended, choose an investigator to earn 1 additional experience point. Experience from this reward must be divided as evenly among the investigators as possible.
Actually, we'll go ahead and let that finish.
Proceed to Interlude 1, Lunacy's Reward.
Okay, so I counted it up. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 clues on the victory, on the act, which is 3, which is going to amount to a total of 5 experience. So I'm going to give 3 to Lily and 2 to Monty. So that'll bring Lily's total experience up to 8. And now we move to Interlude 1, Lunacy's Reward.
Interlude 1, Lunacy's investigators must decide. Choose one. Things seem to have calmed down. Perhaps we should go back and investigate further. Proceed to Lunacy's Reward 1. I don't trust this place one bit. Let's black the door and get the hell out of here. Proceed to Lunacy's Reward 2. If these people are allowed to live, these horrors will only repeat themselves. We have to put an end to this. We have to kill them. Proceed to Lunacy's Reward 3.
After having everything almost go completely haywire on us, I'd rather not run into them again. So we're just going to burn everything down. So we're going to proceed to Resolution 3 and burn it down.
Lunacy's Reward 3. You dare not risk stepping back inside that madhouse, but you can't let the monstrosities run amok either. You root through the open garage for a few supplies, finding an old hose, an empty gasoline canister, and some matches. Knowing what you must do, you first siphon some gas from Mrs. Domain's Oakland 654A. You spread the gasoline across the front porch, inside the garage, and around the manor's outer walls. From there, all it takes is several matches to start the blaze. You watch from the front yard as the manor is eventually consumed by the flames. The sounds of crackling fire and snapping wood and the screeching of dying horrors fills the street. Satisfied, you head back to your vehicle and tear off towards Southside, full of grim determination. You did what had to be done, right? In your campaign log, record that you slayed the monsters at the dinner party. Mark one conviction in your campaign log. In your campaign log, under VIPs slain, record the names of all five VIPs, if not already recorded there. Constance Domain, Jordan Perry, Ishimaru Haruko, Sebastian Moreau, and Ashley Clark. Remove all Cultist, Rune, and Elder Thing tokens from the Chaos bag. Then, add 2 Cultist tokens to the Chaos bag. The story continues in Scenario 3, Echoes of the Past.
I'll handle noting everything off camera, and I will swap out the tokens in the Chaos bag. But anyway, that will do it for this scenario for the Last King. Later this week we'll have an upgrades video with the experience that we got. Then we'll have our tarot reading for the next scenario. Then we'll continue Path to Carcosa in the winter campaign with our third scenario, Echoes of the Past. Thank you for watching the video. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.